Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of FitBody Fusion Lifestyle, or FitBody Lifestyle. I'm sorry.
Fusion hack.
I am just off today. So our fusion hack for FitBody Lifestyle, and we are very privileged to have Miss Shelby Pierce, IFBB Bikini Pro, outstanding person, chosen family, wife, dog mom, all that stuff. So she's going to help us with this fusion hack today. And the topic of this is why your training may be holding you back. And we talked a little bit before we started this, and we kind of identified, we identified 4 areas that you want to pay attention to. And Shelby, you're going to help us talk through those. And so the first one is mind-muscle connection.
So definitely, I think it's probably the most important one. Just make sure when you go into the gym, just be sure you're targeting the correct muscle group and thinking about it and being intentional when you are doing the actual movement.
Do you think that starts before you go in the gym even?
I do.
Yeah.
I really
So
do.
talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, just kind
But
of
having a plan.
setting the intention, obviously having an actual workout that you're going to go follow, understand, all of the cues you're going to be using. And then right when you get to the first one, just make sure, again, just that connection on the specific muscle group, you feel that muscle actually working that you are supposed to be working.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know for me, sometimes just even closing my eyes or touching the air. Yeah.
I think the touching is the biggest one for me sometimes. So,
Yeah.
So the second one then, so mind-muscle connection, our first one. The second one is full range of motion. And maybe talk a little bit about that because you have some experience on that.
yeah. So I think the biggest thing is, I've had people send me videos sometimes and I'm like, wow, they're doing like partial movements actually. So really full range of motion, it's pretty straightforward what it is, go fully down into the exercise and fully come out of it. Don't stay in the middle, pulse, keeping tension. There is some places where that can be appropriate, but for the most part, full range.
Okay.
Right. So I do see this as well. So I know, we do get videos from our athletes sometimes, and if people aren't letting that muscle fully elongate and focusing on both the eccentric and the concentric part of the movement, then sometimes they're missing out on some opportunity there.
Right,
so
the work.
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think there's, sometimes like you're wanting to break through, you're starting to hit, failure, and then maybe doing some little partials at that point makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think when people are just starting out, and, and we see that in the gym too, like, people are just kind of moving, quickly. And I think part of it is the speed as well.
Yeah. I think too, they feel like they can go heavier, so it's better.
Yeah.
If I just stay right here, I can go heavier and go longer, when really it's missing out on the
Well, and
core.
partials do have an application.
Right.
But they don't, that should not be your primary. They can be an intensifier. They can be something that you've done after you've completely worked the muscle, or at the end of the routine or something. But it's just that not getting that full range of motion is really just not the way to approach your training.
Mm-mm. And you're not getting it as much out of it either.
Right.
So, or targeting something different.
Well, you almost like rolled right into our next point, which is choosing the right weight.
Right.
So, I mean, I do think like checking the ego at the door is important first and foremost, but the
Right.
other side is important too. So talk a little bit about like how do you guide people to choose the correct weight?
Yeah. So I think a big one is we obviously place a lot of focus on growing our glutes for the bikini category. So if you're going too heavy and doing the whole ego lifting, you could be letting your quads take over, and we don't want that. The glutes, that's what we want to focus on. So yeah, if you do go too heavy, it can hurt you and lose that focus on the exercise and the muscle that you're wanting to target.
And the same way on the other side of that is going too light, where you're not really
Right.
stressing yourself. And part of that is knowing what's your rep range for basically what you want to accomplish, and making sure that you have that good time and attention, that good slow movement throughout the range of motion. But I do, as we were thinking about this and just partial range of motion, going back to that, there was a gal at one of the gyms that we used to go to that was on the stair stepper, and literally there was like an inch, like barely an inch between the steps that she was taking the whole, and she'd be on there for like 2 hours, but she never really took a full step. And it just, and we've seen other people just do the, the little partial reps and that's all they do, or they'll jerk the weight around or do something, but they're just not getting that full range of motion. And they're usually using a weight that's not appropriate for that particular lift.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or not challenging enough.
Yeah.
Going through the motion, swinging it around, using momentum. So
I did 12 reps, but I got 12 reps in the reps in reserve, and that's probably not where you want to be in terms of intensity. So the last point we have.
Before you jump to the last, I wanted to add one more thing. Yeah. One of the things I do like to do when it comes to helping people choose the right weight is give them a rep range, so that way, because I do think that, each day we come into the gym is a new day. And some days we feel like strong and charged and ready to go. And other days it's like, whew, it feels so heavy. So you're in the beginning, you're doing those warm up sets to figure out kind of where am I today? And then, if you're shooting for, let's say 12 reps and you get to 12 and you're like, that really wasn't enough. I always tell people keep going and then adjust.
Fix it on the next set.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do think that there's a little bit of trial and error. And I do think that every time we go into the gym, that might look different. But
every time I set my clients out, they kind of ask me what am I focusing on? I'm like, your form. Get your form down first. It's okay if it's lighter, then work your weight up from there. If you're losing your form, too heavy,
Well, good lead into the point number 4, which is technique and form.
Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. If you're, not having proper form, you're not getting the most out of it as well as injuring yourself.
Well, you gave one big clue, I think, that a lot of people don't utilize, and some places are challenged for this, but I do think videotaping yourself, whether you're working with a coach or not, but doing that videotape and saying, and it's amazing that we have athletes that will send in a videotape, and they'll say, I thought I was doing this slower, and then when I look at the videotape, I realized I was doing it too fast. Yeah. In that moment of the exercise, you may think you're doing it right, and then when you look at the video afterwards, like, oh my God, my back is rounding, or my knees are extending way out beyond my toes in a squat or something, whatever that form issue is. I do think video analysis is a great way to kind of get that technique down.
Yeah, I think a big thing for myself too, personally, to know that I'm not having correct form is I'm like, man, I don't feel it, in my glutes or in my quads, whatever it is I'm supposed to be targeting. So that's a good way to kind of understand too that you're missing that connection.
And that ties back to number 1, the mind-muscle connection.
Yeah. And if you're a newer athlete, I do think it's worthwhile to get hands-on in the very beginning. Because, I know at this point, like you and I are both working with more advanced athletes for the most part. So, kind of talking to those people that are new to the gym, maybe they're intimidated, maybe it's uncomfortable. Like I do encourage people, do your research and make sure it's the good one, because there's trainers out there that they're on their phones or they're not paying attention. Right. We see it in the gyms frequently. But if you have somebody who's really going to help and teach you, how to do it properly, just so there's not that intimidation factor, I think that's always a great idea too.
Yeah. I've had good success too with clients taking, the training plans I've given them and going and working with someone on those. I'll give them specific movements, like go get it with someone, do these five movements and perfect these before kind of moving on. So
I like that, and I think that if we were to come up with a number 5, which we didn't talk about number 5, but it really ties in with this, is leave your ego, and don't think that when you talk about working with advanced athletes, I'm always thinking that they're advanced, but they may have gotten advanced with that by doing things less efficiently. Yeah. And it's not that they're doing it wrong. It's about really efficiency in the movement of, am I doing this correctly? Am I optimizing myself for this movement? And I think we've all shared this before, is that oftentimes we find that people think they're pushing a heavy weight. They're not optimizing it. They're just pushing the weight, but they're not really targeting that specific muscle that is supposed to be targeted for that movement. So, and I think you've seen that.
Absolutely.
Well, and one of the biggest things we're seeing with the more advanced athletes, because if they've been competing a while, they tend to want to tilt their pelvis so much that when they're going to train, that sometimes they're not getting into the right position. So even with our, more experienced athletes, there are those training things that can.
Absolutely. Which I think goes back to the filming, always be able to send in videos and even look yourself. You should be able to also look at yourself and say, hey, that's not right. You know?
Exactly. Okay, groovy. So we covered our 4+1. So mind-muscle connection, full range of motion, choosing the right weight, and technique and form. And then the fifth one that we kind of added here on the end was ego.
Check your ego.
Check that ego. Anything else you want to add?
No, sums it up.
All right, awesome. Thanks for tuning into this Fusion Hack. And remember the 3 B's: be good to yourself,
Be good to each other.
and be safe. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a review.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.